Christmas, everybody, and welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today. We are interviewing a Hallmark writer again. This is so exciting. It's been so many months. And I'm Booker Grace Wagner. And today I have with me Russell Hainline is here, writer of the Santa Summit and In Merry Measure. We had you on last year. It was a great interview. I'm so excited to talk with you again. Loved the movie. And welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be back. And it's really nice to hear that you loved the movie. This would go a lot differently if you didn't.
Yeah, a lot of questions about the process, less about the product. If I didn't like it.
Correct. Yeah. So did you encounter any difficulties? Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. I love talking to people who are good at their jobs, and you, sir, are good at your job. This was a very entertaining film. I recorded the recap yesterday with Thaddeus. It was super fun. That'll post before this interview posts, but I gave it a very high score. So I really enjoyed it. It was great.
That's very nice to hear. Thank you. It's been very, very reassuring when you think you never know how something's going to be received, right? Like you sort of make things because you would like them, and then the public decides whether they would like them or not, and it's completely out of control. And it's very scary. So the fact that this seems to be very well received, and people seem to like it as much as I like it, is very reassuring.
Well, yeah, it was an interesting, because actually the episode, so we covered Never Been Christ, which I wasn't a big fan of, and then we covered the Santa Summit, and so it was like yin and yang for Hallmark that weekend. So really, in one weekend, you saw that play out, and I respect both writers so much, and sometimes it's just what happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't,
And the director was the same for both movies. Jeff Beasley,
oh really?
A talented director, I believe, also did Never Been Christ. I didn't get a chance to see it. I DVR'd it, but yeah, he did both. So big weekend for him.
Hey.
I think that's right. If I'm wrong, then someone will correct me in the comments. Were
you nervous about like a sophomore slump though? So you have In Merry Measure. People really seem to enjoy it. I enjoyed it. Was that a little bit of a fear of like, oh, can I do this again?
It'll be a fear every time I do anything, right? Like, you never want to let the viewer down. You always want to tell a story that people connect to, and you always want to tell a story that's going to mean something to people. So when you're writing it, you try to make it mean something to you, and then you just hope that conveys. And there's a lot of process between when I write it and then when you see it. And very few of those things are in the writer's control. Luckily, this time around, we had a ton of fantastic and very, very talented people involved, all of whom really shared the vision that I had and that we sort of had when we conceptualized this idea with Hallmark. So, I mean, I felt pretty good about it, but you just never know. I don't know that I would say while I was writing it that I was concerned about a sophomore slump. I felt pretty... at this point, I've written enough that I feel like I can write something that I would like. And then it comes down to whether people agree or not, which is their right as an audience.
Yeah. So, but this was really interesting because this movie, at least to me, it had a younger energy than we typically see with Hallmark. And I mean, you've got things like clubbing and, drinking hard liquor. And I mean, just stuff like that I was just curious, did you get any pushback about stuff like that?
That's a great question. No, is the real answer. I mean, I think that there were maybe details, but in the conceptualization of this idea, it was designed to be younger. It was designed to be more frenetic, sort of a one crazy night kind of plot. There's really no way around the fact that there will be some partying, in a situation like this. We obviously made it a more Hallmark friendly Santa. There was a very funny review on Letterboxd where somebody said, oh, this can't be SantaCon because there's nobody throwing up or something along those lines. And it's not SantaCon, right? It's Santa Summit, very different, more Hallmark friendly.
But I mean, I was surprised though. I mean, you got like a mosh pit going on here. I mean,
we did
for Hallmark. It's pretty young.
I was overjoyed by how much they leaned into it. I mean, you never know. They tell you to go for it. They tell you to follow the vision, and then whatever they can't do, they will help row back while also trying to make it mesh with the vision, but we didn't really have to row back that much.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I don't think that would have always been the case.
Definitely would not have always been the case. And it probably helped that, again, the executive that I was working with, who also did In Merry Measure with me, I think she trusted that tonally I knew what to do and that I wouldn't go too crazy. And, maybe there were like one or two little bits here and there that had to be rowed back a little, but a lot of the script is in there. Like a lot of stuff is in there.
Well, I was so glad to see it, because I've been saying, I feel like I've been beating this drum all year about Hallmark, that they desperately need to be nurturing new talent, because so much of that sort of initial crop from like 2015, 2016 are now like in their 40s. And it's just like, I'm all for mature love stories. Absolutely. But what I'm not for is to have women in their 40s playing roles that are clearly written for 20-year-olds, that like you have a character just doing her first job and just starting out of college. I mean, her first relationship, and that doesn't make sense, to have like Gisbert playing that character. Not that he's just as an example. Like I think that it was so exciting to me to be like, okay, they get it. They're telling a younger story, and they have a 30-year-old actress that's appropriate for playing this role, in the role. And so I don't know, that was very refreshing, I thought.
We started with that. We knew from the idea, like once I pitched where I would go with this, a big part of it is like they're 30. They're on the cusp, right? There's no way to tell a story like this unless they are at an age where they know who they are, but maybe they haven't figured every detail out yet. Like they don't have that like college I can do anything thing.
Yes.
They're at that point where they're trying to figure out, okay, I've still got the energy to go out and do a lot of things, but I'm also trying to see where the path leads me. And that's a very specific age range, right? They're not having conversations this go around about family or long-term job security in a big way or anything like this. They're thinking, is it too late for me to try something completely different? I mean, like Stella and Liam both are very Liam has just done a big thing. Stella is considering trying something new. Jordan feels stuck in a rut herself with her long-term relationship just having ended and trying to figure out, well, what do I do now? Like all I know is these last few years. It was college, then these last few years, and now I'm in this state of where do I go from here? So I think casting young was never even in question because it's so designed around problems that are for a very specific age. I realize sometimes people cast people who are younger or who are older in those roles sometimes. But I don't think that was ever in the discussion.
Well, and you're so right about that time in your late 20s is you sort of start to realize that was like, they were kind of lying to us all those years. That like the things that you're told in college, about the how rewarding kind of work life is and other things like that. I don't care if you have the best job in the world, like you pay dues, and those late 20s are hard. You're paying your dues, and it kind of sucks. And even if I don't care if you're a stay-at-home mom, a lot of times those late 20s is a tough time. It's just whatever job you have, that time is you're paying dues. It's hard.
Yeah. All of these people, in particular, Jordan and Stella are very much me. I was a public high school teacher. I think we talked about that within Merry Measure. And I was not happy at the end. It had nothing to do with the kids, who were phenomenal, and had everything to do with the administration and county funding and all of those things. And so I didn't know where to go. And I saw a lot of people, I know people who had their jobs and their passion class cut away from them by schools, and then they were forced to teach geography or something that they had no qualification for just because that's where the budget led, right? So I did that. And then with Jordan, when I moved to DC to teach public high school, I moved with my long-term girlfriend at the time. And when we got there, she promptly broke up with me. So now I'm in a brand new city. I've got a brand new job, and I haven't dated anyone like that's not been a friend. Like my high school girlfriend was someone I knew. Like the college girlfriends I had were people like my long-term girlfriend was somebody I knew before. So how do you proceed to find someone when you're living somewhere where you don't have any friends or you don't have any of those immediate inroads? And it does take sort of being very honest with yourself and starting to love yourself more and looking less for validation outside of you and looking more to working on yourself and realizing that that external validation will come once you have some self-love, right?
Well, it's true because the other thing that's challenging once you get out of school, out of college, it's really hard to meet people just as friends. It's hard to make friends.
Yeah.
You know, you're so busy, you're so tired. I mean, definitely related to Stella, when she's just like, oh, I don't want to go out with you all. Like,
Stella's tired. Can I have a chair? You know, I don't want to stand up for this. Yeah.
I love Stella so much. She was
I think
funny.
some of the hardest stuff in the writing was figuring out how grumpy can we make Stella while having people like her, right? I'm sure that there were drafts where I was really pushing like as many grumpy jokes as I could. And then they're like, they probably correctly maybe wrote back a couple of those, but we wanted to keep the really good ones. They kept the one that meant the most to me was when Jordan says like, come on, let's blow off some steam. And she says, I'm on the wrong side of 30. I'm trying to preserve all the steam I have left. Right. Like I feel that in a big way, you know?
Yeah. She was so, I loved the moment. It cracked me up with this Christmas tree person, the thing, and she's just like, no, thank you.
That was not in the script. The pine tree was not in the script. It was just a funny costume that they had, and then it was just tickling people so much that then they used it for a lot of scene tags and ended up creating this very fun and interesting. I wish I could take credit for the pine tree, but I can't.
It was great.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
And
but
you bring some heart into Stella because you say, when she says sometimes it's easier to just be a grump.
Yeah.
And because she has had her class changed from I forget what, now I've lost it.
She was a music teacher.
And now she's doing Great Gatsby. She's doing English. And that is a big change. So you saw people that had that sizable of a change, because I only remember that happening once when I was in high school. I think it was from English to Spanish. Someone went from teaching literature to teaching Spanish.
Sure.
But that would be rough to go from music to.
It'd be brutal. There were definitely, I don't want to say with me, but I've talked to arts teachers. I taught theater. So I know people who did theater who then were just given a lot more English. I think maybe my first drama teacher ended up having that to some extent. I don't know if that's right. I might have just made that part up. She definitely taught both drama and English.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that I just wanted to create one of those scenarios where when you are in a county, any county in America, really, where there are multiple arts teachers in one position. And I saw a couple of people comment about this on Twitter. They're like, music teachers at one school. We had two music teachers where I taught, and I think I don't know if they're both still there, but
we did
adding
at my
the
high school
one was a massive deal. And I definitely know that when the county goes yoink, right, then that position will also be the first to fall. And then where is that person left? I don't know.
Right. I mean, because we had a band teacher and we had a choral teacher in my high school.
Yeah.
So we technically had two music teachers.
Two music teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there was a math teacher where I taught. I won't name her, obviously, but she had a really bad reputation as being just like a bad teacher.
We had some of those too.
And so I feel a lot of empathy for those people because I don't have empathy for the fact that they're just like, they are reveling in it, but I have empathy for how they got there. It almost certainly started because they really wanted to teach geometry, and then the school was like, no, but what you can teach is algebra 1 to freshmen repeatedly, which is something that maybe you don't really want to do, or you get just sort of moved around from math to math. And so this person literally, like, every year or two, they'd tell her to teach a different thing. It's like, well, no wonder people think she stinks as a teacher. She probably is really unhappy doing this job, but also doesn't know how to do anything else at this point. So what are they going to do? That's a person later in life. Luckily, Stella is still at the point where she can still decide from here what she wants to do. And more important than what she decides is obviously that she feels more empowered at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a problem, not just with education. It's a problem in all business, it's a problem in America right now, because we talked about this when I was getting my MBA, that oftentimes they'll force using traditional business management, they'll force somebody into a management role, even if they're completely incapable and terrible at managing. Like, let's just say, as an example, you might have like a custodian, a janitor, who's great at being a janitor, but terrible at managing people. But the only way that he can get a raise is if he becomes a manager of the other people in his department. And so you're wasting resources instead of just paying him for the thing that he's good at and actually wants to do. And it's a problem that we have all over. And
totally. And it's schools and in education, it's the worst of the worst. I mean, so I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that both of the movies that I've written so far have teachers. I feel a lot for teachers, especially now, and what they are having to go through. And it's not the kids. The kids are great.
I started doing some substitute teaching. Woo!
Yeah, dude.
If anything gave me motivation because I've actually been thinking about writing, I have a screenplay idea, and I was like, if anything gave me motivation, it was doing that substitute teaching.
Subs are just sort of set up to fail. It's
rough.
It's frustrating, but so that's where Stella's coming from.
I loved her. She was so funny, and I thought the actress just nailed it. She was so good, and
a great singer. Fantastic.
She was really funny. And it must have been incredibly daunting and challenging to try to tell basically 3 love stories in all of this madness of everything, and making sure that each felt like they delivered and were well done. Like, that must have been hard.
Well, and there's a 4th love story too there, which is the friends sort of reconvene. Right. So you have to track all 4 of those things through all 9 acts. And it's easier to write the girl goes back to her hometown and there's a guy there. That's structurally a lot less complicated than this is, but that might be why people are responding to this one. You know, it's different structure than a lot of the other ones.
Was it tricky to pull off the insta love? Were you like nervous about that at all? Like, do you have to have like such a connection, make it work, that they only have just one tiny scene and then they're not together the rest of the movie? So that's tricky.
It's very hard. It's very hard. Definitely did a lot of drafts of the scene where they meet, for
sure.
Lots and lots of drafts of that. I love old movies from like the 30s and 40s where people did meet and kind of just decide they wanted to, that they were in love with one another in 60 minutes flat or whatever. So for me, like, I've never had an issue with it because I love watching people fall in love in a movie and you're rooting for it to happen, right? So I think the audience just wants it. Like, once they meet and you see there's a spark, since the audience wants it, it makes sense to then carry through and have the characters want it. So I know a lot of people it's not like he got down on one knee at the end or anything, right? Like, so I don't know. I found no problem with it like throughout, but it was definitely a conversation that we had many, many times. And I think more complicated than how do we get them to fall in love after just meeting once, which, I mean, I don't know. I've been to bars and things and had a conversation with a girl in my single days and like gone, you know, like to go get a drink and thought in my head, like, maybe she's the one, right? Like, people fall really fast.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you know.
I was more concerned about tracking it through the movie. I don't know if you saw, like, for instance, the Ashton Kutcher Reese Witherspoon movie from earlier this year, where they're on FaceTime. They're like never in the same room. And it didn't work.
I didn't
think the chemistry. But it's hard when they're not in the same room. So I tried to have a lot throughout the movie. When people rewatch it, hopefully they rewatch it. Their dialogue mirrors each other a lot. They'll repeat something that the other person said. Like I think at one point in maybe Act 2 or when they're describing each other to their friends, they use the exact same language to describe each other to their friends.
Yeah.
And little things like that, I think, help. And then just having those near misses is also really helpful, because then we do get to see them together or just in passing, and the audience is going to have that like want. And if we can get the audience really wanting them together, that helps.
Yeah, I mean, I wondered if you were inspired by screwball comedies of your, you know, bringing up Baby and your, you know, the Christmas in Connecticut, these sort of the antics of that era. Really
Then the next movie is going to be even more explicitly inspired by those movies. This one, I went back to the well on a couple of like when I was growing up, Can't Hardly Wait was a big movie for me. So, you know, the scene with Dasher and Jordan at the end is very much the scene with Jenna Elfman at the end of Can't Hardly Wait. Any sort of One Crazy Night movie, I wanted to watch a lot of those. I mean, even things like, even though it doesn't carry over into this movie at all, things like The Hangover. Right, or
I can see that,
or After Hours, Scorsese's After Hours, just any sort of thing where we see lots of obstacles getting in the way of goals over the course of one night, and how do we consistently track what this person wants, and how do we, in some of the cases, maybe not an after, but like in some cases, root for those people. The Ethan Embry, Jennifer Love Hewitt thing in Can't Hardly Wait is very much kind of in play at this movie. And so, that's the hardest part here. It was, I think, coming up with antics was very easy because there's so many locations and so many things for them to be doing. And there's also the serendipity bit, right?
Yeah, serendipity.
That's definitely another source, which I have never seen.
Oh, really?
Or maybe if I did, it was 100 years ago. That idea that idea of like boats passing in the night and watching that repeatedly is something that was very interesting to me to explore. So we'll get more screwy antics in the future, hopefully, as a team. But yes.
Well, Ava and Ben, super fun. I loved them.
Yes.
And you had to, and I thought that was smart because it was a nice counterbalance to the insta love. So you had this long simmering love going on with the two of them. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, you must have had a super fun time working on all the Lord of the Rings and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I love
Lord of the Rings. Nerd on.
My brother texted me and he was like, I didn't give you permission to write me into this movie. My brother is really into Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
So he's definitely an inspiration, you know, to some extent on this. The most important thing to me with Ava, and we had this conversation a lot because there was nervousness about, we didn't want her to seem like the kooky cat lady because that's not who she is. There was this idea that some people hold where if she's got cats, if she's into cats and she's into Lord of the Rings, that she's like a lonely dork or whatever.
Yeah.
And we really didn't want that. Ava, more than either of the other characters, really knows who she is and is not ashamed of it. There's the one scene where Stella says, like, maybe don't go into the math routine when you're telling Ben how you feel about him. And she like doesn't even blink. She's like, why? I like math. You know, like the guy I'm going to be with has to like math. Otherwise, what are we doing here? You know, I wish that I had been more like Ava, you know, when I was in my mid to late 20s. I think it would have been really valuable for me.
Like she's confident. She's confident with who she is, but she's also extremely nervous. And you know, she's invested she's invested so much at this point.
Yeah.
And it probably has such a headcanon of like how this is going to turn out and what he's going to say and imagined it in so many different ways. And so in that sense, she is kind of a nerd. I mean, she's definitely a nerd, but like in the sense that she's just probably overthought this.
Yeah. Her nerves are not, he won't like me, like, or that nobody like him can like someone like me. Her nerves are more like, did I miss my window? And or
maybe he just likes me as a
just
friend.
not into me like that. Is he right? Or does he not like the things that I like in the way that I like them, in the way that will make this thing work? I think she's worried about the logistics of it.
Yeah.
I don't think she's worried about her own desirability.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's very different. I think normally in these movies, when they're watching fantasy and have cats, then it's kind of at their expense. And I really did not want the laughs to be at her expense. I wanted her to be a very strong nerd, a very self-actualized nerd.
Yeah.
Who just wants to find the love that is right for her at the end of the day.
Yeah. And it was such great casting, both of them, Amy and Adam Hertig, who I have long been a huge fan of. He was in a movie called Snowman's, which if you haven't had a chance to see Snowman's, it's hilarious. It's really good. And he was great in that, and he's great in this. I love him. He's so good.
Yeah.
Oh.
His delivery of the Lord of the Rings line at the end gives me chills. He understood the assignment, you know.
He did.
That whole act 8 is probably my favorite thing that I've done so far. Everything in it. And so much of the credit belongs to the cast and to Jeff and to the people who executed it. But it looked on the screen and sounded on the screen the way that it looked and sounded in my head for like the whole act. And that just is not frequent generally for writers. So I feel very, very fortunate.
I agree. It was really great. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the new Gift Wrapped Romance Sweet Clean series, available now wherever you purchase books. Looking for some cheerful escapism this holiday season? Snuggle up with a cup of hot cocoa and lose yourself in 5 festive tales of romance with the new book series, Gift Wrapped Romance. These 5 funny and feel-good books have all the jolly hallmarks of perfect holiday reading. Twinkling lights, mistletoe kisses, and plenty of Christmas cheer. Swoon over your new book boyfriends as they find love in the most magical season of all. Find the books wherever you do your book shopping this holiday season, or use the affiliate link in the description below. You say in the movie is that there are 3 things you need to have in common: a favorite food, a favorite movie, and a favorite drink. Now, what I would say, you don't necessarily have to have them in common, but you have to have like a certain degree of like understanding and respect for the other person's choice. Like you couldn't if somebody's favorite food were like barbecued ribs and the other person was a vegan, like that would be a deal breaker. Yeah.
I don't even think they need those things in common. I think that was just a nice shortcut to make them immediately realize, whoa, maybe this could work out in a way that was very quick and intentional. I don't know why there's balloons coming across my screen. That's fun. Yeah. There's some update that I had for my computer where now, like, I think if I do a thumbs up, it'll like give me a little, there's fun little things that I still am figuring out. I've never seen the balloons before. That's great. I think it was just a shortcut to show them how compatible they were right away. I don't think it's a necessity. Certainly my wife and I don't have the same favorite movies at all.
Yeah.
Or maybe, but we do like a lot of the same things. I think to some degree it's useful, but
I just think that you have to be like,
vice versa too.
Yeah. Like, I think you have to be able to at least say like, that's not my favorite, but I can see why you like it. Like there has to be somewhat like degree of respect.
Yeah, I think those are things where you can work through those once you have like a really strong foundation. But when you're trying to figure out if you have a foundation with somebody in the span of a 5-minute conversation, knowing that you have everything in common does definitely help in that respect.
Well, because you don't want to date yourself. Like you don't want to date an exact copy of somebody who likes all the same things that you do. But that one of the great things about, I think, being a movie fan in life is that you always have something to talk about with anybody. Everybody has something that they some movie, even my parents who like almost no media, they still have something. There's like you could talk to somebody about what Disney movies do you like, or what do you not like, you can. It's just a great way of finding the things that you can connect with, and then once you connect, like even something simple, like for a long time I was a huge Survivor fan. And I made so many friends just talking about Survivor. What do you think about this winner? And what do you think about that? And I hate that person. And blah, blah, blah.
There's a community element to art in general. And I'm definitely learning this with Hallmark over the past couple of years. I've started doing this. There's no question. Yeah, and like my friend Colby Day, who's a brilliant screenwriter out here, we went and saw the Trolls movie the day before the premiere. We just thought it'd be fun to go see Trolls and then eat some food. And, we sit and we talk about movies for like 3 hours. And then I come home and my wife is like, so, like, how's he doing? What's going on in his personal life or whatever? And it's like, we didn't even get around to it this time around. We do talk about those things too, but sometimes you can just talk about all the things you've seen and how much you love it. And I mean, absolutely. I think loving Casablanca there was a line at one point. I don't think it's in there anymore. I think it's sort of waved the hand, but when Liam says, she likes tacos in Casablanca, Max said something along the lines of, that's like 50% of women in America or whatever, like that doesn't narrow the field. They like things that are very eminently likable. So
it's true. I have a longtime friend, and for years our main point of connection was we were big Disney fans, and we both loved animation, and that was the predominant thing that we would talk about when we were together. And a different friend was like, oh, how many was asking me questions about him, like about how many siblings or something. I was like, I have no idea.
Who are they as a person? I don't know. But they're cool.
But they love the Rescuers, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, they're smart and they're funny. We know that, but I don't know what their middle name is. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Also, I think those things are superficial. When do those things come up? They come up organically in conversation. I'm never going to say to a friend who I've just met, so how many siblings do you like? Is this a job interview?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, no, you talk about movies until those things organically come up, until it mentions, oh, I went to see this movie with my brother, and then you flag that. You're like, oh, he has a brother.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I have to say, you're the best line in the whole movie for me.
I think I saw you post about this.
Yes, it was so good. Was effort is more important than result, not if you're a surgeon.
Yeah, Stella knows. Stella has every sassy reply, right?
Yeah.
Her replies to Freddie about the Grinch. The Grinch hates loud parties, and then Freddie sasses back that a loud party is what made his heart grow 3 sizes, and then she says he should probably see a cardiologist about that.
Well, but also she finally makes the point that the reason why the Grinch is because everybody in Whoville is being so darn loud, and if they were just quiet.
Yeah, he might just be a guy in his late 30s who just is tired. Yeah,
I can relate to that, man. It's so hard for me to get to sleep because I'm an insomniac. If I get woken up,
yeah,
it's not pretty.
Grumpy, grouchy, absolutely. Yeah, I really liked those scenes in between where Liam meets unknowingly both Ava and Stella. We worked through those scenes a lot too. Because I think there was some concern, especially with the Ava scene, and I don't know who had this concern. Maybe I'm blowing this out of proportion, but I think some people would read that and think, oh, is on the page, is Liam hitting on this person? Like that there was at some point some note given of like, should he be this like open and intimate with somebody that he's not romantically pursuing like right away and say, I know you're going to find good luck with the person you love tonight or whatever. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, but this is who the guy is. And every interaction with a guy and a girl is not immediately relating to romance, right? Like sometimes you can just be nice to a woman without wondering what her number is, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I felt like Stella was older than the other two. Is that
Stella's a little older? Yes.
Yeah. So maybe that's why I didn't immediately go there. It's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think the concern was in the Ava scene because Liam buys them drinks. So it's like, who would buy a drink for like somebody? And I was like, well, she just said she's going to try and, you know, convince or tell somebody that she's in love with them.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing for a nice person to do, irrespective of romance. And again, any conversations that we had like this got resolved very quickly. And people were like, oh, yeah, because again, I've loved working with Hallmark in the sense that sometimes you will get a note. And then as long as you can explain back, well, here's why I'm not like convinced of that note. They'll go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then it's fine. Right. Like, so
that's good to hear.
Yeah. At least in my experience, the people that I have worked with, I can't vouch for everybody. The people I've worked with, I've been very, very pleased.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. It's why I think the movies have turned out pretty well in my estimation. I mean, yeah, when you listen to other people, when there's conversation like that. And I've had to listen too. There were things that I would have included, and then somebody made very convincing arguments for why maybe I was wrong, right? That's a huge part of the writing process, is figuring out who has all the best ideas. And then we put all the best ideas in there, and it's a huge part of directing and producing and all of the things. So
yeah. Well, how did DJ Ginger end up getting in this movie? How did that all happen?
It had nothing to do with me. I wish I could, again, another thing I wish I could claim credit for. I think they're doing a few cameos this year, like throughout the movies. Like I think like Wes Brown is gonna like pop up in something unexpectedly, and there's a couple of dudes that they worked in as cameos to movies, and I think that just made sense here. I think originally I had DJ, he wasn't called DJ Ginger Jeff. I forget what he was. He might not have even had lines. I thought I just wanted a guy in a big gingerbread costume. Like I pictured, you know, that DJ Marshmallow with the big marshmallow head. I pictured somebody like that. But hey, when you can get somebody with pedigree and have a really fun cameo that the fans really enjoy, when they told me that's what they were going to do, I was like, hey, that sounds awesome to me. Great.
It was hilarious. And I also just loved how proud Hallmark was of it. They're like tweeting it out, and they're like, oh, look at us, we're so cool and hip.
I know. I would love to find ways. I think because it's such a tight-knit community, and because everyone knows who everyone is and all of this, I would love to find ways to make this like a very regular thing, right? Like, if I have a bit part in a movie, how fun would it be if that bit part, if we could just bring in like my boy Brendan Penny for 20 seconds or whatever, right? Like how cool and fun would it be if those were options, like going on?
The next Santa Summit that says Patty Mirren was a pop star.
The Santa Summit sequel.
It would be perfect because she was a pop star in Merry Measure. So she could be perfect at one of these like clubs or whatever.
They could play Sugar Rush. I think I did have something in there that got cut that was trying to connect like the Russell extended cinematic universe. but things happen in the process. Things get changed.
But you do have an idea. You tweeted out that you have an idea for Santa Summit too.
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once somebody floats the idea to any writer about, hey, what if they did a sequel to this? The first thing that crosses your mind is either like, well, this is complete. This is a full circle.
Mm-hmm.
There is nowhere else for these characters to go, or for this world to go. This is done. Or you start to think, interesting, and then the gears start to turn. I definitely have an idea. It would depend on so many things, right? It would depend on, do the ratings justify a second? Right. What about like the cast? Do people get brought back? Which people get brought back? Which people are available? There's like so many logistical things that get into stuff like that like I try not to get too excited, because I guarantee everybody thinks they're going to do a sequel and then it falls apart. But it would be, if they wanted to do it, I would be very on board. And I think I have an idea that would work really well.
Well, most of the time I'm not in favor of Hallmark sequels, because they're usually terrible. Because usually once the couple's together, they just don't know what to do next. And so you have them have a wedding movie, which I usually hate, or you have them break up, which sucks. We don't want to see them break up. Yeah, you don't want
that.
No.
Yeah. That's a conflict. Like, yeah. That's a conflict.
But with this, you could make it more a sequel, and this is just me giving you my idea, but like, sure. I would make it more.
By the way, if you give me this, you're giving me free reign to steal it, and you can't give any credit.
Full credit. I would make it a sequel to the Summit, less a sequel to the characters. So you could have them pop in and out, and that would be fun. But I would make it what is happening at this year's Santa Summit, and because that's the way romance novels. The reason why they work is they almost never have a sequel in a romance novel. The way romance novels work is that you have a like a baseball team, and each member of the baseball team gets a book, right? Yeah, and so then you'll have the person who's in the first book will pipe in, and you'll see maybe their wedding or something like that. You'll see them, but it's about a new couple and a new story. And so you could have basically be the Santa Summit franchise, for lack of a better word. Yeah. And I think that would work really well and be super fun. And you could tell so many kind of different stories within. So there you go. That I gave you my idea.
I'll put it this way. In the conversations that I have had about the possibility of if it was going to happen, and again, nobody knows. Right. And you know what? Most of the time it doesn't happen. So this is all just a fun exercise at this point, right?
Hypotheticals.
If it's a none of the characters come back idea, I have an idea. Oh, nice. We're getting the thumbs up. If it is it's in this world and we like kind of see them, but we're mostly following new people, I have stuff for that. If it's maybe maybe somebody else is the lead that we already know, or like we try and like do the Bridgerton thing, right? If we follow like somebody else a little more down a little tangent road, have something for that. And certainly if we wanted to do let's get the gang back together, I think a really good idea for that would, I think the fun thing about thinking about a sequel for this is that because they are younger, there were more things to do. So
and also because it is literally the beginning of their relationship and so it's not at the same kind of place as people who are like second chance romance or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I think that some of the issues that you would have with a wedding movie or with the couple that got together is experiencing some difficulty, but then they figure it out. I think that because they're younger, and certainly like only one of the couples has the L word out there. Yeah, I think there are things that can be done across the board. I have some fun. In the same way that like I think people saw the concept of this movie and thought, well, maybe this is going to be silly, maybe it's going to be whatever, and we sort of, I'd like to think, found ways of flipping some audience expectations a little bit. I think even if we did take a route that would be a more typical sequel route, I think I have some fun ideas of how to twist them and make them interesting.
Well,
so,
I'd trust you.
Cool.
You, like I said, I love talking to people who are good at their jobs, and you're good at your job. Yeah.
Thank you.
I enjoyed both of them a lot.
I appreciate it. I really feel very blessed that this came out as well as it did. That the couples just had great chemistry, that they all have 3 very different things. I love that I was very concerned that the scene with Dasher in Act 8, where we're leaving the group for like 5 minutes to have our lead character just get advice from some very, very external from the group character. I was concerned I'd get a lot of pushback on that because it is a long scene.
Yeah.
But I didn't get much. I mean, we trimmed some of it down, I guess, but yeah, I think that whole scene is lovely. It's the heart of the movie. The Ava Ben reunion is so lovely and so beautifully shot. And then we have Jordan dancing by herself, which just gets me teary-eyed. I love how that
was fun. The line dancing.
I love how the Jordan dancing in Act 8 came out. And then obviously she sees the gingerbread house. And again, we tried to do a little something different with the gingerbread house stuff than we see in these, right? This was sort of a more tactile, utile gingerbread house than maybe hey, let's all hang out and do gingerbread houses kind of deal. Yeah. So yeah, I really, really love that segment. I'm over the moon about that, and over the moon about the whole thing. Really, everybody
it was great.
Did such a great job.
Yeah, it was so good. I loved it.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Well, last time we gave you the Christmas questions. So this time we're doing our just regular during the year end of the interview questions.
Sure.
So you ready?
Hit me with any questions. I'll try.
First question is, what is the best ice cream flavor?
I'm going to be super boring. I'm a vanilla guy. But like Breyers with the little like specks in it.
Oh yeah. Like French vanilla. Yeah. Good.
I don't even know. Is that even French? It might just be like it's got like the ground up vanilla beans in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the black box with the little speck. Some people definitely are like, yes, dude, I'm in on that. Some people are listening and screaming.
Well, especially, I do love a really good vanilla, especially with like a really good hot fudge sauce on top. That's
sure.
one of my favorites.
I will buck tradition and say I'm a bit of a purist. I'm a vanilla ice cream guy. I'm a dry cereal guy. I'm very boring.
All right. What is your favorite color?
Blue.
Okay, good. What music are you into?
Boy, what music am I into? I like a little bit of everything. The last 2 bands that I saw here in LA, which speaking of, this will tie back to Stella some, there is a new venue that opened up in LA called the Bellwether, and they were getting very cool acts to play in this very intimate space. Now, normally at this point, when I go to a concert, it's to sit. I think my days of like going and standing in the front for an hour and a half before the act goes on and then standing through the opener and then standing through those days are generally behind me. But this new venue opened up, and 2 of the concerts they were going to have in like the first month were Haim and Carly Rae Jepsen. And I love both of them. I had already seen both of them in concert at much bigger venues and thought they put on a great show. And I thought, all right, well, we're going to brave this. We're going to go. And before the concerts happened, I slipped a disc in my neck. So I still went to the concert, but like I had to find like a pillar to like stand up against. And you know how hard it is being at a concert and not being able to move side to side? Like if anyone had seen me at that concert, they would have thought this person is a complete psychopath. This person is totally insane. This is Frankenstein's monster just hanging out. So you know, I love some pop. I love Carly Rae. I love Haim. Those are the things I listen to a lot. And then living in LA, I love like yacht rock, like you know, your Michael McDonald, your Steely Dan, if you want to call it that. You know, your Hall and Oates. You know, I've got a playlist that whenever I'm driving anywhere, it just relaxes me. It's very soothing.
There's a really great episode of How I Met Your Mother where Ted Mosby gets what he calls the Murtaugh list. And it's all his list of stuff that you're told, you know, for this stuff like Murtaugh. You know,
yeah.
And he keeps adding things to the Murtaugh list. And I'm like, that list, I mean, that's legit. Everybody at a certain age, you start your own Murtaugh list.
Dude, I'm getting to the point where
is on the list.
I'm getting to the point where going to a concert like
at all
without some sort of ear plug, like I've been to one or two. I also love hip hop. I'm a huge rap and hip hop guy. And going to the last couple of shows, like last time I saw Anderson .Paak or whatever, it was a phenomenal show, but my ears were ringing for 12 hours.
Well, that's why I was telling Thaddeus yesterday, I was like, I probably shouldn't have liked this as much as I did because I'm not into like the clubbing scene or like, you know, this all sounds like a nightmare to me. It does not sound fun to me at all. So I was like, oh, but it was just so well done that it worked.
One of my favorite gags is when Ava and Ben see each other and they're like, hey, like talking like you're at a thing and they go, oh, wait. And then they take it off and it's completely silent in there.
Yeah.
You know, I loved that bit. I loved that we got to do the silent disco. Huge props to Hallmark, by the way, I should say, about the number of extras in this movie. This is a huge movie for them in terms of scale.
It's true. I was like, COVID is over, evidently. I mean, because there were a long time where you would have maybe 5 people in a tree, and rightfully so. They that's what they need to do at that time. But I was watching this movie thinking, okay, we're back. Group scenes.
This is a larger number of extras. In terms of like normally for movies, it's a lot easier for them to do like the big tree lighting ceremony or for In Merry Measure for the big concert at the end, because the extras are there for like a day or two, right? But for this, you need a sea of extras at basically all times. And so the budget for extra, I don't know what the budget was for extras, but if you told me it was like one of the largest that they've had in a great deal of time, I wouldn't be surprised. I was very, very impressed with how many bodies they had consistently in screen. And it looks great. I mean, the movie looks great as a result of that expense. So I'm very, very happy that they did that. It makes me look really smart and good as a writer, you know? Yeah.
All right. Next question is, what is your go-to date night food?
Go-to date night food. You know, at this point, boy, I'm just sounding like the most boring guy on earth. I'm realizing I'm such like a married guy in his 30s. We like to go see on Thursday night whatever the newest movie is that came out, and because there's a Sweet Green right there, we tend to get Sweet Green. We've kind of got a staple. If it was like a style of food, if we were going to go out like for a fancy, like, you know, Saturday night or whatever, probably Japanese. I'm a big Japanese guy. I love Japan in general. Very, very cool. Japanese food is great. And then living in LA, Mexican food here is obviously also terrific.
Well, which do you like better, dogs or cats?
Oh, dogs. I'm a huge dog guy. Big pit bull guy. I love my dog who was barking. You stopped the recording because my dog, we were started and then my dog would not stop barking because the mailman was here. I've got a sweet little pit lab mix named Dawn. And for the romance fans out there, my dog before this was a blue-nosed pit bull named Mr. Darcy.
Oh,
so he was a very cute, sweet boy.
Oh, yeah. Which do you like better, beaches or mountains?
Probably mountains, which is interesting living in LA. But LA, you have everything, so that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
I really like the vibes at the beach. I like getting in the water, but I'm a very pale boy. So the mountains are probably just better for my health. I also just love hiking. I love getting outdoors. And when you're at the beach, I think it's like more for chilling, right?
Right. Yeah.
I just went on a trip with my in-laws to the Florida Panhandle, and they are very much a beach vacation family. And I think my family and growing up is a very mountain vacation family, like do a lot of hiking, a lot of activities. And my in-laws are very chill, like let's hang out, let's read books. And that was hard for me. Like being with the in-laws was great, but like sitting still was hard for me.
I think I want that for about a couple hours, and then I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Let's go. Let's
a short decompression. Do it for a day. A day of decompression is phenomenal. By day 2, I'm thinking I should be more. Yeah, absolutely.
What is your favorite holiday to celebrate?
This is a tough one. Favorite holiday to celebrate. I do love Halloween. We just had Halloween. I didn't really do much this year. I busted out my usual The Dude in the Big Lebowski outfit.
Okay.
It fits my hair and my general vibe and personality.
I figure it's a main reason to get married is that you have someone to do Halloween costumes with.
But my wife does not really like Halloween.
Oh, man.
I'm a theater kid. So I love the idea of like getting costumes and dressing up. And my wife is not a theater kid, which is a big reason why I love her. I dated theater kids. I like the yin and yang. I think very, very well. But it does mean that she doesn't love dressing up for Halloween the way that if it was up to me, I'd spend a huge amount of our budget on costumes every year. So if not Halloween, I mean, I do love Christmas. My wife's favorite holiday is definitely Christmas. You can see in the background, we did a watch party for those of you who are watching on YouTube instead of listening. My wife made a bunch of snowflakes up, and there's like a little Garner over here.
On the mantle.
There's a snowman over here. She already was just excited for the excuse. I think like November 5th Santa Summit, some people were like, man, that's really early in November. And that is true, but it gave my wife an excuse to go ahead and set up all the Christmas stuff. So I'll say Christmas in solidarity with her, but it's Christmas or Halloween, one of the two.
Very good. All right. Well, this may be a hard question. What is your favorite Hallmark or romantic movie?
My favorite Hallmark or romantic movie.
You can say your own if you want. No judgment.
Questions. Well, obviously the best were written by me. I think the first Hallmark movie that I watched, I'd probably seen some in passing. The first one that I really watched when I realized that I would have the opportunity to maybe try to write one of these was Winter in Vale with
that's a fun
Lacey and Tyler, right?
Yeah.
That one is really good. And I think more than anything else, it shows that if the leads have good chemistry, and you have, some basic stuff to do, like the plot doesn't break any molds, but you kind of like them right away.
And you watch them making strudel and stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, it taught me a sort of lesson in the sense of maybe sometimes you just need to like get out of their way and let them have those quiet moments, because that's really where the audience like finds their inroad to fall in love, right? My movies are very fast talking, a lot of talking, but having those quiet moments is good too. That'd be my favorite Hallmark one. My favorite romantic movie is such a harder question. Oh my God. I'd have to like look through my Letterboxd and like and go through some of the things I saw recently. I really liked. Good God, this is such a hard question. I'm just trying to think of like things that I saw recently. I've been watching a lot of Screwball stuff, but like I don't know necessarily that the romance there is what I love about it. Like I don't think it makes like my heart soar, like the big
that's true. Whatever. That's a good point.
And then something like Brief Encounter is very sort of lovely, but maybe not it doesn't have like the audience cheers bit.
We just did a Meg Ryan
what's yours?
ranking.
Give me a good
well, I mean,
to look at my letterbox.
I do love any version of the Perfumery story. So the Shop Around the Corner, You've Got Mail.
Yes.
She Loves Me on Broadway. I just think it works. The idea of falling in love over your words is just romantic, and it works. So that would probably be up there for me. I also, it's not rom-com, but I love the anime Your Name. That's my favorite movie. And I just absolutely love the connection that they have. And once you've like been in each other's, once you've come to understand someone, how they feel it in their bones, and they want to do anything to find this person that's basically calling out to them. And then as the story goes, you learn more and more, and you learn, and there's obviously a big reveal at the end. And I just think it's brilliant. The animation, the music, the story, it's funny, it's romantic, it's tense, it's, it's got action in the, a point where you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? So I love it.
Yeah. All right. I've got a couple. I was going to say The Age of Innocence, but that kind of falls under the same umbrella as like Brief Encounter, where it's not really the big moment. Anything with Gene Kelly. I did just see An American in Paris recently. I think that expression of love when it's through dance in a movie, I always tend to really love. Maybe like It Happened One Night. It's a good, because I love the scene where Clark Gable comes in, and I don't know the exact words, but the dad of the woman is like, "Do you love my daughter?" And he's like, "No, I hate her. She drives me crazy." And he's like, "Do you love my daughter?" He's like, "Love has nothing to do with it." He's like, "Yes, I love her, and I hate that I love her, and it drives me crazy." It's such a it's such a nice it's such a nice twist on how to do those sorts of things.
It would be fun to have you on and just talk classic movies, because I know you're such a buff. I always see you on Letterboxd. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I've been watching so much this year. I mean, being on strike meant that I was watching a ton of movies. And now that I'm writing full time, when I'm not writing, I'm really trying to bone up on my education, right? Like I get ideas for what movies should or should not be every time I see some old movie that I think is really smart and clever. And it sort of pushes me and makes me want to be a smarter and more clever writer, and to try to bring those things to these genre pictures that I love so much.
Well, I'll have to send you the link, because one thing we started the podcast, because we weren't doing any interviews. So me and Terry started doing these ranking episodes, and it's been so much fun. It's been great. And we did a whole episode on ranking classic rom-coms, our top 12 favorite. And then we did rom-coms from the 60s and 70s. And so that was fun. And then we did musicals, and classic musicals, and then modern musicals. And anyway, so I'll send you some of those links. It's been fun. But yeah, they're
people love lists. People love lists.
I do.
I definitely, on Letterboxd, I have a running list every year of my favorite movies, like in very arbitrary order, but I try to order them. I just watched a bunch of horror movies for Halloween for the first time, and I ranked all of them. And now, because it's November, Noir-vember, I love film noir, definitely one of my all-time favorite genres. And so I'm trying to catch up with either classics I haven't seen, or things that I haven't seen like since college, or my early to mid 20s. And so that's been a lot of fun as well. So I've been ranking those too. Ranking is fun. It's totally arbitrary and stupid, but it's fun.
Yeah, totally. Well, you did it. You answered all the questions, and you made a great movie. So congratulations.
If I'm on a third time, you're gonna have to come up with a new list of questions. I'm gonna stretch you as an interviewer.
Don't worry. I'll be ready.
All the things. Yeah, great. Excellent.
Well, if people want to follow you, social media, your Letterboxd, how do they do that?
Yeah, so I'm Russell H. Film, basically everywhere. RussellH Film on Twitter, on Instagram, on Letterboxd. You can find me in those places. A couple of other weird things that are off the cuff that I'll plug in case anybody likes some of the same things that I do. I am a Duke college basketball media member now, and I do a show called The Crazy Cast, Crazie cast, where we talk about Duke basketball. And so you can find that everywhere you can find podcasts, or on YouTube. And I have a separate Twitter account that's just Duke stuff called Duke Better. So if you like Duke basketball, you should follow it. And if you don't like Duke basketball, I don't blame you. Don't show up. And then weirdly, I'm a craft beer influencer. So if you go to like TikTok, I'm the beer travel guide on TikTok. You know, I tell people I only know anything about 3 things in this world. I know movies, I know college basketball, and I know craft beer. And somehow or another, I've managed to get work in all 3 of those areas of things that I really love. So
that's great.
I feel very, very fortunate to be doing all of those things. So if you like craft beer, you follow the Beer Travel Guide. You like Duke basketball, follow the Crazy Cast. Otherwise, Russell H. Film everywhere. I post about movies all the time.
Great. Well, we'll have all of that in the description, so make sure you check it all out. And we'll have a link to last year's interview as well. And so thanks so much for coming on. This was so fun.
I almost wore the same shirt as I wore last year. I would have been so embarrassed. Luckily, I have 2 red shirts because my Santa hat felt appropriate and festive. But yeah, if I come on next year, I'm gonna have to find a shirt that's not red.
That's okay. We'll allow for once a year repeats.
Fair enough. Yeah, I can.
It'll be okay. Yeah. Well, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas. This was great.
Thank you, Rachel. You too. Absolutely.
I'd like to thank Russell for coming on the podcast. This was so much fun to get to talk with him. I had a blast. And so let us know what you think about all the different things that we talked about in the comment section or on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also make sure that you are following the podcast, the Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That helps us so much. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. We also have a Patreon group and merch store. So please take a look at that. And thanks again to Russell, and we'll talk to y'all later.